Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the Rixson number 44. This is a door closer, long discontinued. I have a contact who has a stash of positively priceless vintage Rixson catalogs, who was able to send me the cut sheet that is down below this video to the 1950 catalog where this is in there, and he believes that this closer would have shown up in years prior to 1950. Now, in the mid-century was potbelly closers, of which this is a small footprint of a potbelly, but was very common. That was the closer style. We called them traditional. They're called today traditional, but they're known as potbelly closers, and this sure looks like a potbelly closer. This video is to talk about as much as I can about the 44 closer, let you know what I am aware of regarding it. And I've only seen a couple in my entire career that we've had taken in for the client and rebuilt and brought back to operating standards. These two closers likely were in existence for a half of a century in a moderate commercial application that would have millions of cycles on them. And let's talk about the 44, then we'll talk about the repair or exchange program. The 44 was a surface-mounted door closer that would work on a double-acting door. And you really can't think of any surface mount closer that will work on a door that swings in a double-acting fashion. The 44 does for this client that we've repaired this closer for. It is installed on a double-acting door. It will be hung on a door with double-acting spring hinges. The 44, according to the cut sheet, would have come with a top pivot accommodation to help prevent the door from pulling away from the jamb when it's going into its opening and closing cycle. The 44 ran on hydraulic fluid only. The 44 had two valves, one for the egress cycle and one for the ingress cycle. So out and in, can control those independently. If you've got exterior doors, you might have a different condition on if they swing out. Well, they swing both ways, but in the egress swing, you might want to control that differently than when the door comes into the space. The device contains no springs and functions only as a hydraulic check on the otherwise uncontrolled force of spring hinges. So if you've got spring hinges, what's the door going to do? According to the catalog, it's going to flap. It's going to move aggressively, etc. So you can have the 44 help control that. Brings the door to a quiet rest at a closed position without flapping. The check may be attached to the inside or the outside of the door. It functions on right or left-hand doors without any alterations to the door. The check is screwed to the top of the door, and the arm anchor is screwed to the head jamb, what would look like a parallel arm fashion. And the way that it's able to do that is the parallel arm sits underneath the header, and the arm immediately hangs down and connects to the main arm. And that will permit this to scoot under the header to go out, and then to pull away when you're on the in-swing portion of the cycle. So really ingenious. Quite frankly, I'm really... I guess there's just not a need for a surface mount closer that will double act. Does seem quite ingenious for 1950, in my opinion. Well, that's... ingenious things, have been occurring for decades prior. The 44 has two checking valves, one controlling the closing action from the in-swing of the door, and the other, the closing action from the outswing. Thus, with entrance doors, the check, the 44, may be adjusted to meet the opposite wind influence on the door's outswing from that of the in-swing. An interlocking pivot is always furnished for attachment at the top of the door to prevent the door from pulling away from the jamb at the closing point. What does that mean? Well, to me, that means, and I've never seen one of these installed, I've only seen photographs, is that Obviously, if you're going to have hydraulic control over the door, you're going to have to remove, or all but remove, the tension on your double-acting spring hinges. If you did that on a modern double-acting spring hinge, the door is going to fall out of the opening because it requires spring tension to keep it proud. You remove that tension, the door is just going to sag and continue to move away from the hinge jamb until it's stopped by the jamb or by the leaves unfolding and then stopping. The interlocking pivot is going to force that one leg, once it's mortised to the top of the door and the hinge to the frame, it's going to force it to stay in a plumb position. Without it, you'd have to keep spring tension, which means the 44 is going to be fighting the spring tension. In order to have ordered this, they would have needed to know the number of the check. In my opinion, that'd be a 44. Door material and jamb material. So 44 by fasteners for your door, by fasteners for your jamb. Machine screws, wood screws, you'll specify that. And then your finish, which would have been a painted dull bronze. This is a repaired closer, literally fresh off the repair bench, and is certainly not going to be the same bronze as are in the photographs of this closer or its sister closer prior to repair. But, this is going to be a bit of a gold bronze, but nonetheless, it's not bad for matching a color that's 7 decades old at this point. And not recommended for doors greater than 42-inch wide on spring hinges. They were packed 1 to a carton with directions, 12 to a case. I'm actually surprised that in almost 30 years I've seen so very little of these out in the field. I guess how many double-acting doors do you really have that you would actually see these? So incredibly fascinating. But I've been able to tell you as much as I can about the 44, and I do very much thank the assistance of the person that I mentioned earlier with access to the catalog and the knowledge. The Rixson 44, other Rixson surface closers, Rixson overhead concealed, Rixson floor closers, we can repair those. We can operate on those in a repair fashion where you send us the closer, we repair it, and we send it back to you. Or we can do an exchange. An exchange is where we send you one, you make the switch, you exchange the closer, send us back the old one. The price that you see is for the repair. If you send us the closer, that's the cost with any options that you select, plus the shipping, that's your price. If we do an exchange, in essence, we're doubling the upfront cost to you. The motivation there is to send us back the old one. If the shop doesn't have any of these to rebuild, what happens to the business model? It stops. We can only do repairs. Now, there were no 44s on the shelf. The client literally had to send us this closer for us to work on because we did not have any. That seems to be more and more the case as these positively old door closers become impossible to obtain, where you can send it to us for a repair, but we don't have one to do an exchange. Certainly in a 44, it would always be a repair scenario. There are options that you'll select on the right-hand side before adding to cart. Return core option, the drop plate, which actually does not apply to this closer at all, and by the time you see this video, that option will be removed. Corner bracket, neither. There was a corner bracket option and a drop plate option. Those don't apply to a 44. There was no such accessories for it. That certainly would have prevented it from operating in a double-acting fashion. More information is down below, deeply detailed, with videos that explain the repair and the exchange to the nth degree. It's very simple. Send it to us for a repair. Awesome. Or we can do an exchange. The cost basically doubles up front. And I didn't mention, I should have, when we do an exchange, you basically double the upfront cost. You do the swap, you send us back the old one. From there is a core refund. It's like when you change the battery on your car and you take this battery back to the department store and they give you back $15. That's the core refund. The percentage core refund is mentioned in the extended description of the item. Tremendous. 44. Interesting catalog cut down below. Not even going to take any well, you know what? Let's take some basic dimensional properties of this. Overall width of the mounting portion, about 3 3/4. I guess overall height from the mounting portion to the bottom of the body, about 4 3/8. The two valves that control egress and ingress are obviously here. They can spray paint this to any color that you want. Obviously, I think this was really only done in dull bronze. I'm sure the factory could have done it in aluminum or could have done it in black for you, whatever you wanted. We'll go from there. If you have any questions on the rebuilt or exchange of a Rixson 44 or any other Rixson product or any repair or exchange closer at all, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you very much.